Imagine this. You're at the airport, bags packed, ready for your vacation. The airline agent looks at your passport and says, "Sorry, it's expired. You can't board your flight." Panic sets in. Your trip is in jeopardy. This happens more often than you think. Can you still travel? What do you do? In this video, I'll explain everything you need to know about expired passports and how they can affect your plans. By the end, you'll know exactly what to do if it happens to you and how to avoid it in the future. What you will learn in this video. In this video, I'll cover what expired passports mean for your international travel, how expired passports can affect your visa and entry requirements, what happens at the airport if your passport expires unexpectedly, real-life examples to help you understand how it all works, a step-by-step action plan to prevent passport issues from derailing your travel plans. By the end of this video, you'll have the information you need to avoid common passport mistakes and ensure your travel plans go smoothly, without any last-minute surprises. Main explanation section. What does an expired passport mean for your travel plans? Let's start with the basics. A passport is an official document that proves your identity and citizenship. It's required for international travel and, in most cases, to enter foreign countries. When your passport expires, it loses its official status, meaning it's no longer valid for travel. Who does this apply to? Anyone planning to travel internationally needs a valid passport. Whether you're going for a vacation, business trip, or family visit, your passport must be valid. But what happens if you show up with an expired passport? Here's the issue. Many countries require that your passport is valid for a certain period after your arrival. For example, some countries insist that your passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended stay. So if you're traveling with an expired or soon-to-expire passport, it could cause problems. Who is exempt? In most cases, travelers need a valid passport. However, there are a few exemptions. Special agreements between countries. Some countries have agreements that allow citizens to travel with just their national ID cards instead of passports. Visas for specific countries. Some destinations don't require a passport at all if you have a valid visa or other travel document. Certain regions with different rules. For example, travelers within the European Union can sometimes use national IDs instead of passports. If you're not sure, it's always best to check the entry requirements of your destination before your trip. Common misunderstandings about expired passports. A lot of travelers mistakenly believe that as long as their passport is valid when they leave, they'll be fine. But the reality is more complex. Expiration date, confusion. Many people don't realize that some countries require your passport to be valid for a few months after you arrive, not just on the day of departure. Transit stops. Even if you're just connecting through a country, their entry requirements may apply. If your passport is expired, you could face problems even if you're not staying in that country. Real-life example, let's say you're traveling to a destination in Europe. You've checked with the airline and everything seems fine. However, when you arrive at your stopover country, the immigration officer tells you that your passport must be valid for another 6 months. Unfortunately, your passport expired 2 months ago, and you're not allowed to continue your journey. Common mistakes travelers make with expired passports. 1. Not checking passport expiry dates early enough. This is one of the most common mistakes people make. You might look at your passport and think, "It's fine, I still have a few months left." But those few months can make all the difference when it comes to entry requirements. Why it happens? Travelers don't always realize that some countries require at least 6 months of validity beyond their stay. How to avoid it? Check your passport's expiration date as soon as you start planning your trip, and don't leave it until the last minute. If your passport is nearing expiration, apply for a renewal immediately. 2. Assuming the airline won't check your passport. It's easy to assume that your airline will be focused only on your ticket and boarding pass. But the truth is, many airlines will check your passport at the gate, and if it's expired or close to expiring, you could be turned away. Why it happens? Airlines are often responsible for ensuring you meet the entry requirements of the country you're flying to. and they could face fines for allowing you to board with an expired passport. How to avoid it? Always check your passport's validity before your trip. If you're not sure, reach out to your airline to confirm any entry requirements for your destination. 3. Not renewing your passport in time. Some travelers assume that renewing their passport at the last minute will be fine, but that's not always the case. Passport processing can take longer than expected, and sometimes there are delays. Why it happens? Travelers may procrastinate or not realize how long it takes to renew a passport. How to avoid it? Start the renewal process at least 6 months before your passport expires, especially if you plan to travel internationally. 4. Forgetting about visa validity. Your visa might be valid, but what if your passport has expired or is about to expire? This can cause confusion because your visa may still be valid, but without a valid passport, you won't be allowed to board the plane or enter the country. Why it happens? Travelers sometimes think that their visa is the only thing that matters for entry. How to avoid it? Always check both your visa and passport expiration dates to ensure they align with entry requirements. 5. Failing to check entry requirements for connecting flights. If you're transiting through a country on your way to your final destination, the country you're stopping in might have its own entry requirements, including passport validity rules. Why it happens? People often assume that transit countries won't have strict rules for their passports, especially if they're not staying in the country. How to avoid it? Always check the passport requirements for any countries you will be transiting through, not just your final destination. 6. Not planning for emergencies. In rare cases, you might find yourself with an expired passport while abroad due to unforeseen circumstances. While some countries have fast-track emergency passport services, it's important to understand the process and be prepared. Why it happens? Travelers don't consider the possibility of emergency situations that may delay or affect their passport. How to avoid it? Have a backup plan. Research how to get an emergency passport in the country you're visiting and keep important contact information for embassies on hand. Special Situations section. Connecting flights and transit countries. If you have a connecting flight in another country, even if you're not leaving the airport, the transit country might require that your passport be valid for several months after your planned arrival. Check the visa and entry requirements for any transit countries you'll be passing through. Dual nationality. If you have dual nationality and one of your passports has expired, you may be able to use the other passport. However, it depends on the rules of your destination country. Always verify the passport requirements for both nationalities. Expired passport during travel. In case you're already traveling and your passport expires, you may be able to get an emergency passport or a temporary travel document. Visit the nearest embassy or consulate for assistance. Be prepared for delays and paperwork. Step-by-step action plan. Here's a checklist to help you avoid passport problems before your trip. 1. Check your passport's expiration date. Start by checking the expiration date of your passport as soon as you plan your trip. Ensure your passport is valid for at least 6 months beyond your departure date. 2. Renew your passport early. If your passport is nearing expiration, apply for a renewal at least 6 months before your travel date. 3. Verify entry requirements. Double-check the passport validity requirements for your destination country and any transit countries. 4. Confirm airline policies. Reach out to your airline to confirm they won't have issues with your passport. 5. Plan for emergency situations. If you're already traveling and your passport expires, contact the nearest embassy for an emergency travel document. Final warning/important reminder. Your passport is a critical part of your travel plans, so don't leave it to chance. Check your passport's expiration date well ahead of your trip and make sure it meets the entry requirements of your destination country and any transit countries. Remember, airlines and immigration officers don't give exceptions. An expired passport means you won't be able to board your flight or enter your destination country. Strong closing traveling is exciting, but smart travel preparation is essential. Check your passport early, avoid last-minute surprises, and you'll have a stress-free journey. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with friends who are planning to travel. Safe travels.